Welcome to the live stream. We do have a Bernie Sanders rally, not rally, although it may turn into one, a town hall coming up in just a few minutes on Fox News. This is Fox News being, quite frankly, just opportunistic. They know Bernie needs help in Michigan. They are holding the rally in Detroit, and we will be watching it starting at the bottom of the hour. Welcome to everybody who is just joining us. We are on the eve of what may be either the reinvigoration of Bernie's campaign or effectively the end of it. And I mean, listen, you guys know I don't blow smoke up anybody's ass here. I believe it's over for Bernie Sanders. I'm not saying I wish it were that way. I tell you things as they are. I am about math. I am about facts. And it just looks very, very bad for Bernie Sanders. In fact, I have to be completely speculative, doesn't even really cover it, to come up with a scenario where Bernie can win. But Bernie's doing what he has to do. Bernie's doing all he can do, which is, hey, let's ask Elizabeth Warren for an endorsement. Let's cater to Elizabeth Warren's followers, supporters. Let's do a town hall in Michigan where people are voting tomorrow. What else can he do, right? So let's look at the numbers as they are today. We have a whole bunch of new polls, and it's just ugly. It is very, very ugly. And I see the super chats starting to come in over here. And I am going to get to those momentarily, but we do have a lot to discuss here. We have new national polling from this week, which, as you can see, let's zoom that in a little bit. Geez. Oh, actually, that doesn't really work. Okay. We have Biden plus 19 nationally. We have Biden plus 16 nationally, Biden plus 16 nationally, Biden plus 13 nationally. As you can see here, the numbers are just overwhelming. If we look at the states that are voting tomorrow, Bernie is putting everything on Michigan. Everything is on Michigan. And unfortunately, it is very ugly in Michigan. These are all new polls, ladies and gentlemen. Biden plus 15, Biden plus 12, Biden 21, Biden 41, Biden 24. Now, the bullet point is, whoa. Bernie was down in the polls in 2016 in Michigan, but he won. The momentum at that time was shifting towards Bernie, whereas the momentum now is shifting to Biden. I wish it were different. If you vote in Michigan, go the hell out and vote. Prove me wrong. But guys, I'm not going to come in here and tell you that that Bernie has any kind of serious shot. It would take a miracle, quite frankly. If we look at Washington, this one was presumed to be okay for Bernie. The latest polls are Biden plus 3 and Biden plus 1. Maybe Bernie can eke it out or get roughly half the delegates there. In Missouri, we have Biden plus 30 and Biden plus 22, and then just Biden plus 4. We'd have to see if Warren was still included in the plus 4. Okay, maybe he could do something there. Mississippi, I don't even know that there's polling in Mississippi, but Biden might win by like 50 in Mississippi. And then, you know, the thing is, if you look at the delegate count today, even if Bernie can somehow make up the 90 delegate deficit tomorrow, I think Bernie falls further behind. Then you have to contend with Florida on March 17th. Florida's 219 delegates by its very self. And Biden, in the latest poll, the only one from March, Biden is up 47. So do I think Bernie has a shot? In the most narrow technical sense, sure. I think it's going to be very, very tough. We saw endorsements coming in over the last 48 hours. Kamala Harris endorsing Joe Biden, Jesse Jackson endorsing Bernie Sanders. At this point, I don't even know if the Jesse Jackson endorsement does more good than harm to Bernie. And, you know, that's it. Oh, people are telling me Hassan is crying. Oh, I should call. Guys, I know about the the people are crying meme at this point. I'm not falling for it. In fact, I saw Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bonnell II for brunch last weekend. And we were talking about how people think I actually am falling for these dumb memes, but I just pretend to be falling for them because my audience reacts like crazy to them. But no, I understand what's going on as we are just 17 minutes away from the Bernie Sanders town hall. Okay, let me do some thank yous and messages and all sorts of stuff is going on. If you are watching on YouTube, you can send super chats. Oh, and we're not live on Facebook. Let me get us live on Facebook. You can send super chats via YouTube, they'll show up in the bottom left of the screen, which is currently gray. I see some messages coming in. We will get to those momentarily. If you are watching on Twitch, then you can subscribe via Prime or directly, and your message will show up in the upper right-hand corner, which will be very exciting to many, many people. Let's get to some of the YouTube messages that are coming in so far. First and foremost is Kevin McComer, who says, why is housing so expensive in blue states? Fix, well, the economies of blue states tend to be stronger, and it tends to, so you, when you, a state has a stronger economy, you tend to have a higher cost of living. Also, the blue states can contain most of the desirable large cities where people want to live. Desirability also increases cost of living. John McKinney says, my advice to Bernie Sanders supporters, don't get complacent. That's why Bernie lost Super Tuesday. Remember to get out and vote. That's the only way he'll win the primary. Don't get cocky. I don't know any cocky Bernie Sanders supporters right now. Bernie Sanders has, listen, if you wanted me to bet on Bernie, does 100 to 1 odds even get me to bet on Bernie? Like, why would I bet $1? Would I bet $1 to maybe win 100 on Bernie? I don't even know that I would take 100 to 1 odds right now. I mean, it's if you tell me to put my money where my mouth is, you need to give me better than 100 to 1 odds to bet anything on Bernie. I guess if you give me 100 to 1 odds, I throw 100 at it, right? And maybe I win 10 grand. I don't know. It would be very, very tough. Very, very tough. EYTPS says via Super Chat, message deleted by T. Hayes. I don't know if that's the Super Chat or if the message was actually deleted. That's interesting, though. And then Casey Bates says, David, do you think GOP is more serious about the virus? We're calling it the cool virus because otherwise I get demonetized. Now that the Florida Matt Gaetz constituent died and Trump is likely infected, I'm sure they hope the death percentage is low now. I don't know that Trump is likely infected, but I mean, while we're doing cool virus stuff, you might notice that Trump publicly insists that everything is just totally fine. This is video of Trump refusing a handshake and doing an elbow bump over the weekend. Take a look at this. Handshake, no. And then they go with the elbow bump. So Trump knows, right? Trump knows at this point that it's serious. Trump claims he's going to continue doing rallies. Look at his schedule. There are no rallies scheduled. Trump claims this is no big deal. It's like the flu. Trump, check out the Vanity Fair article. I'll tell you about it tomorrow. Trump now says he's worried that journalists on Air Force One, I hope you're sitting down. Trump is worried that journalists on Air Force One are going to weaponize the cool virus and infect Trump with it. But he says it's just like the flu. I'm not aware of him being worried that the flu will be weaponized against him. And then lastly, Donald Trump says this is just like the flu, except normally Trump shakes hands. And here he is not shaking hands. So it is bad. It is bad. Let's look at some of the latest numbers. Latest number of, remember, this is cumulative cases, 114,000, 4,005 deaths. 62,000 people have now recovered. Active cases. This is a very, very important graph, active cases, because the cumulative number is going to continue rising. What you want is the active cases to decline. And as you can see, they are not declining. They are going up. The U.S. isn't even testing. The numbers could be absolutely wacky. As you can see here, scaled linearly, total cases and deaths are both climbing almost vertically. That's not good. But if we want to find something good, I will tell you what it is. China has only 44 new cases yesterday. China updates the numbers once a day, and I believe we're 40 minutes from China updating the numbers. China's number of active cases is declining by about 1,000 a day. And what you'll see is that sorted in terms of cases per million people, China has dropped into 5th and may soon drop into 6th or even 7th in cases per million, because China is clearing cases very rapidly. That's a good thing. Now, they needed 6 weeks of authoritarian police state in order to do it. That's a concern. One of the biggest areas of concern right now is Italy. It's absolutely unconscionable what is happening in Italy. Iran is having trouble. After that, you've got a couple of other European countries, South Korea. South Korea, what is very important. So listen, I don't want to. Should I even do this? Should I do I'll do the rant. Okay, listen. Here's the deal, folks. I sound like Joe Biden now. Um, the death rate of 3.4 is likely very high. And there's a good piece in the Washington Post about this. This doesn't mean Trump's doing anything right. It just means 3.4 is probably high because a lot of that death rate is weighted to the early cases in China, okay, where they didn't know what was going on. It was chaotic. If you look, according to this article, at cases diagnosed after February 1, the death rate is low. When you look at which place has been doing testing of large numbers of people, it's South Korea. South Korea has been testing large numbers of people. And when you look at the South Korean death rate, which is 53 deaths with 7,478 cases, you have a 0.7% death rate. I'm hopeful because I don't give whatever about the politics. I don't want people to die. I want to deal with this. I have travel coming up. I have family that is, immunocompromised. I want the best possible outcome. The one good thing is that South Korea, which has actually been doing widespread testing, which is what you have to do. If you really want to know how many people in the US have it, I don't believe, does anybody believe there's 624 cases in the US? Of course not. There are thousands, if not more, cases in the United States. We're not testing. The way to test is you take an area where you have some cases, you test everybody, okay? South Korea did that. Their death rate is 0.7%. The hope is the death rate is far lower after the Wuhan initial outbreak because we're getting better at identifying this, quarantining, providing supportive treatment, even if there's no cure. That's number one. Number two, there's the idea it may have mutated because these things mutate over several months. It's been several months now. It may have mutated into a less severe strain. It's possible. We don't know yet. So I believe that it is conceivable that the death rate is actually significantly lower than this 3.4%. We don't know. But the South Korean numbers are optimistic as far as that goes. You see that ranked by cases per population, South Korea is very high. It's because they're doing the right thing and they're testing a whole bunch of people. They're just testing large groups of people. And the death rate is very low. That's my cautious optimism on this. Okay, let's get back to what we are waiting on. We are just minutes from a Bernie Sanders rally. Now, before we get started, I do want to say just one thing. Tomorrow night, we're going to have like a 5-hour stream. It's going to be absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I hope that all of you join me. We're going to have a big thing going on tomorrow as far as membership goes. For today's stream, we have a very modest membership goal. It's just 25 new members. That's it. Okay, you're not going to hear me talking about it very much. We're running a test. I'm going to talk about it very little, but we'll see if we can do it. Membership is the number one funding source for our program. We keep almost the entire payment compared to all these other platforms that are just taking. Sound like Mitt Romney all of a sudden. And we have a coupon code that'll save you 66%. That coupon code is 2020 now. Everybody who signs up, I will thank you. This blue bar, which is embarrassingly at 0 right now, is going to start filling up. So consider yourself invited if you want to do just a little something for us with these streams. Grab a membership at joinpacman.com. I promise you, I will thank you, and it'll be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let me just make sure that our website is not down. Oftentimes, the first time I mention it during a stream, the website implodes. No, the website is up. Very, very good. And of course, Twitch Prime subs, all of that stuff, I will be thanking people. Let's look at some other super chats as we wait here. Kevin McComber says, listen here, you dog-faced pony soldier. Yes, very, very good. Jason Aldridge sends 2 super chats, one with a question. What do you see happening Biden v. Trump this 2020? Listen, the stream tomorrow will start right around 8 p.m. for people asking. Here's my view on Trump or Bernie, Trump versus Bernie and Trump versus Biden. A lot of people in my audience have very black and white views on this, where they say David, the only person who can beat Donald Trump is whoever you support, right? Whether it's Bernie, whether it's Tulsi, whether it's Yang, or very few people say it about Biden because maybe the Biden people aren't that confident about Biden, which is understandable. Here's my view. If the cool virus is brought under control, if the economy is perceived to be pretty good, and right now it's tanking very quickly, Trump is likely to get reelected no matter who the Democratic nominee is. On the other hand, if the economy is perceived to be poor and the cool virus is not under control, then it's very likely that either Biden or Bernie have a shot at defeating Donald Trump. That's my view. I know it's not popular among the sort of more cultish supporters of the different candidates. But listen, I'm quite frankly just too naive to at this point be even pseudo deifying any candidate. These are just people. They are flawed. They have good policies and bad policies. That's it. You're not going to hear any deification of any candidate from me. Jesus C. Christ says, not all populations genetically similar or diverse. I'm not sure I understand, but I think it refers to the cool virus. People wondering why I'm calling it the cool virus. The reason is demonetization. If you actually talk about it by its real name, you get demonetized on the YouTube. So we say we call it the cool virus, and that's sort of it. That's the full story. Let me say just an incredible. This is maybe the biggest thank you I've ever done. I want to say thank you to Courtney Forster. Courtney Forster. No, I'm sorry, Grayson. Oh, I think this might be Grayson, the 14-year-old who watches the show using his mom's account. Grayson Forster is today's first new member at joinpacman.com. Grayson's 14 years old, folks, assuming I'm talking about the same Grayson, and has gotten a membership. If you are an adult, you can certainly grab a membership at joinpacman.com. And the goal today, what is that? 101? Oh, I see. There's a typo. One of 25 new members. Let's fill it up. Grayson using mom's credit card, unless I'm completely misidentifying Grayson. Also, I want to say thanks to Eric Harloff, who is new member number 2 today. Eric, thank you. Very much appreciated. Let me also say thank you over on Twitch to Shaners, who has gifted 5 community subscriptions. I appreciate that. And SupDNS has subscribed with Twitch Prime, which I very much appreciate as well. Jesus C. Christ says, means the death rate may be higher for different populations. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. We may see different death rates for different populations. No question about it whatsoever. We do have a hype train happening on Twitch. I want to welcome Plague of the Earth, who has gifted 2 more subscriptions, and I appreciate that. We're just a few minutes from the start of the Bernie Sanders Fox News Town Hall. Bernie Sanders, as we talked about already. Listen, I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's ass or anywhere else that smoke may occasionally be blown. The odds are probably worse than 100-1 for Bernie Sanders, or 1-100. I don't know exactly. In any case, I think you guys get the point. He's losing essentially every state tomorrow, other than he might tie Idaho and might tie North Dakota. It's looking very, very bad. So unless the polls are so wrong that Bernie somehow can make up a 90 delegate deficit tomorrow, it's going to be very, very bad. All right, let's see what's happening with the Bernie town hall here. Oh, nothing yet. Okay. We'll get back to that momentarily. Let me say thank you to a few other people who are signing up. Haroon Muhammad. Haroon Muhammad is new member number 3 tonight. Thank you so much, Haroon. I really appreciate your support at joinpacman.com. I also want to say thank you to Brian Gallagher. Brian Gallagher is new member number 4 tonight at joinpacman.com. You can take advantage of the coupon code 2020 now. Info is up there. You will save 66%, which is just unbelievable. In the meantime, I do want to see if there is a YouTube stream of this town hall. Let's see. News Bernie Town Hall, because that might actually be interesting for us. but I am not seeing that. So hopefully this stream comes alive very, very soon, because I don't fully know what's going on. Let me just refresh. We want to make sure we don't lose it, right, folks? Programming will return shortly. Okay, very good. All right, other super chats coming in. Okay, Nicole. Oh no, let's see. Matt Welser says, will Yang, Steyer, and Gabbard endorse Bernie? No idea. Won't make a difference. Nicole S., do you think the media's coverage of Biden's mental decline will hurt his chances tomorrow? Maybe marginally. Maybe marginally. Daniel Krieger, Biden will be nothing but a DNC puppet. Doug E. says you should eat Cocoa Puffs on stream tomorrow. I don't have any Cocoa Puffs, but maybe otherwise I would. Let me say thank you to S. Dokel, who says via Twitch, just send some bits on Twitch. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Other people that I wanted to thank for new memberships. No, nobody else right now. And we are standing by here for the Bernie Sanders Fox News Town Hall. Plague of the Earth has gifted another subscription over on Twitch. I appreciate that. Esteban Cifuentes says, if Biden loses to Trump, will the Democratic Party move more progressive, or will they put up another moderate in 2024? My belief is that if Biden loses to Trump, you will see someone more progressive in 2024. But I know nothing. I know nothing about anything. So I don't know why anyone would listen to me, quite frankly. If this has gone live and we have missed anything, please let me know. But as far as I can see, this is still live and we are just waiting for the stream to resume. Bama Gus says Sessions or Tuberville will take the Senate seat in Alabama. Very likely. Very, very likely.
In the battleground state of Michigan.
The only way we achieve these goals is through a political revolution.
Can the Democratic Socialist reignite his revolution?
Again with the socialist
Joe
stuff.
Biden's...
By the way, I've been saying for 6 years, he should never call himself a Democratic Socialist. I think that has certainly been proven true. And when you see how North Florida Democrats go almost completely to Biden, we will all be in agreement. The Democratic Socialist thing was not a good idea from day one.
Trump.
There's no limit to what we can get done in the next 4 years. But first, we have to beat Donald Trump.
The American people understand we cannot continue to have a pathological liar as president.
With tomorrow's big prize, 125 delegates now at stake.
Bernie Sanders makes his case to America.
Swingblitz says phone banking in Seattle right now for Bernie.
Good evening, everybody, from the University of Michigan Dearborn Fieldhouse in Dearborn, Michigan. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Brett Baer. We are just hours away from voting in what some people are calling Super Tuesday 2.0. 6 states will decide on their choices for which Democrat should go up against President Trump this fall. 352 delegates at stake.
The fallout from last week's Super Tuesday voting has left us with a two-man race. Former Vice President Joe Biden riding the wave of an incredible comeback.
True.
Biden surging in 2 polls here today in Michigan against the former frontrunner, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, the self-described Democratic Socialist who is feared by many in the Democratic Party establishment.
Tonight, we get a second opportunity to
Someone
talk
keep
with
track
Senator
of how many
Sanders
times it's
about
mentioned.
what he believes and what direction he wants to take his party and the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders. You're welcome. Good to have you.
Using the elbow block pioneered by Bill
Thank you
Clinton
very
there.
much for being here, Senator
avoid
Sanders.
a
We
hug.
just want to mention that obviously there's the coronavirus situation going on, and President Trump is about to speak from the White House about the task force, and you are able to see that streaming right now on Fox Business and it's streaming, I should say, on FoxNews.com and on Fox Business. So with that in mind, let's start and dive in here with our first question this evening. Welcome again, Senator Sanders, which comes from Mahdi, who is a supporter of yours. Mahdi.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. The coronavirus has quickly become a public health threat with a global reach. and infection and death rates are rising here in the United States. What is your assessment of the Trump administration's handling of the outbreak, and what would you do differently?
Good. You don't mind if I stand here?
Not at all. Your choice.
All right. Sadly, we have an administration in Washington that has shown the world that it does not believe in science. Its attitude toward climate change, which it thinks is a hoax, is telling the whole world, how do we trust this administration dealing with an international crisis, healthcare crisis of the coronavirus? When you appoint Vice President Pence, an individual who also doesn't much believe in science, what you're telling the whole world is that we're politicizing this issue rather than dealing with it from a data research scientific basis. So first of all, this is what I would do. You need scientists leading the effort, not politicians. This cannot be in any way, shape, or form perceived to be a political issue. Number two, we will talk, I am sure, about Medicare for all. But when I talk about health care being a human right and all people having health care, the coronavirus crisis makes that abundantly clear as to why it should be. You got millions of people in this country today who may feel that they have a symptom, but you know what? They cannot afford to go to a doctor. And then they're going to go to work. We have a president of the United States, doesn't matter, go to work. We have a president who says absurd things. So what we need to do is right now make it clear that all Americans, if you are feeling sick, go to a doctor. It will be paid for.
Right.
Don't hesitate to go to the doctor.
Incredible
I'll
that
give you
we're in a
another
country where that
example.
needs applause.
As all of you know, or should know, we are the only major country on earth that does not have paid family and medical leave. So what does that mean in practical terms? When half of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, today you're feeling sick, maybe you're coughing, maybe you have a fever. But you know what? You got to get to work.
Fever.
You got to go to your job in McDonald's or Burger King or Walmart, because you don't go to work, you don't get a paycheck, you don't get a paycheck, you don't feed your family. What happens if you have that virus and you're going to work? You're spreading it to other people. So right now, while we move to make paid family and medical leave national policy, at this moment at least, we say to every worker, if you are sick, stay home. And we will figure out a way to make sure that you are compensated and get your salary so your family doesn't suffer.
Senator Sanders, to Marty's point.
Now look for the
Marty's
question
about
turnaround.
what you would do differently. Standing around the president right now are a lot of scientists, Dr. Tony Fauci, and the head of the CDC, a lot of experts.
Good.
Would you not have those experts?
Of course I would.
Well, what would you do differently to his
Well, but here is the point. I would not be a president saying to the world, oh, by the way, was he on Fox saying this, right? I have a natural ability to understand the problem. Is that true or not? But,
I think he did say that, yeah.
all right. He doesn't have a natural ability. I mean, you don't.
He said that to all reporters at the CDC. But
I understand that.
that's
All right, but my point is, for a start, as a president, I don't claim, if I'm president, that I'm the world's greatest scientific expert on climate change or coronavirus. You listen to the scientists. You don't say stupid things. You don't suggest to people that you can go to work. That's not what the scientists.
Okay, well, let's talk about the economy. The market's dropped.
What, we're not talking about coronavirus anymore?
We are. This is to deal with coronavirus. The market's dropped 2,000 points.
I always
Spunky
give this guy
Bernie
a hard
today.
side,
You do, but-
because I remind him he's on Fox Television. He forgot about it, but I wanted to.
We'll be fair. The market's dropped more than 2,000 points today based on the virus.
Yeah.
Airlines, cruise lines, hospitality industry obviously taking a big hit. What if those companies needed a bailout to stay afloat and avoid losing thousands of jobs?
Well, ask
As
Trump that too,
president,
right?
How would you handle requests by American companies for a bailout?
One of the differences, if I might say, between Joe Biden and myself is that Joe bailed out the crooks on Wall Street who nearly destroyed our economy
Shots
12
fired.
years ago. I'm using the word crooks. You're not, right?
That's true.
Okay.
This is going to be fun tonight.
You did use the word. That's
Okay.
correct.
I used the word. Okay. And these guys, after destroying the economy, they came to Congress, and they hate, they oppose, they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, many of these Wall Street executives. But they came to Congress and they said, bail us out. And what I said at that point is, I understand the economy is in trouble. And if you want a bailout at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, that's fine. Go to your billionaire friends and we'll put a special tax on billionaires to bail out the economy. And it wasn't only the TARP funding, it turned out to be trillions of dollars in zero interest loans. So my answer right now is we will take a look at the economy. Obviously, we don't want the economy to tank. But when 3 people in America, Brett and Martha, own more wealth than the bottom half of this country, when 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%, when we have more income and wealth inequality than any time in the last 100 years, if we need to bail out the economy, you know who does it? The people on top, not working class people who are struggling today. And number two, when we talk about bailing out the economy, this is not going to just be more tax breaks and subsidies for large corporations. Want to talk about bailing out the economy? Let's provide health care to all Americans as a human right. How's that? Let's talk about raising the minimum wage to a living wage of $15 an hour. So you talk about bailing it out. If it's simply helping the people on top with taxpayer money from the middle class,
right,
no way.
Let me ask you two questions that are part of one. The first one is you've talked about raising taxes on corporations, raising taxes on Americans to some extent as well. Would you, if you were in the Oval Office today, given what's going on in the economy right now, concerns that perhaps there might be a recession coming, as some people suspect could happen as a result of all this, would you hold off on raising taxes while that situation is going on?
Well, what I would do, no, I think raising taxes does 2 things. Number one, it is one means of dealing with a grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. All right, I don't believe, Mike Bloomberg, as you know, was
I have to interject here. Notice that the question is premised on the idea that raising taxes is bad for the economy. Bernie should be undoing that notion.
I think one thing you do with progressive taxation is you say to the wealthiest people in this country whose wealth is exploding, while we have 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets, including 30,000 veterans, where we have kids who cannot afford to go to college, yeah, we're going to ask the wealthiest people in the country to pay their fair share.
With respect, can I just, because you're answering that question, I think, the same way that you would have answered it a month ago before the virus happened. But I'm asking you, in the middle of right now, when we are potentially in an economic crisis, you've got all these companies that are halting conferences and cruise ships and all these things. Would you say, yeah, but you know what? I still believe that in this moment we need to raise taxes.
I will not become president until January, and the economic situation will be different than
if you were there today in this moment.
If I was there today,
would you raise taxes today?
What I would there, well, again, I would raise taxes on billionaires for dealing with the issue of income and wealth inequality and raising the funds we need for education, environmental protection, and homelessness. But in terms of an economic stimulus, which I think is what you're talking about, we have an infrastructure today which is crumbling right before our eyes. We have millions of people spending half of their income.
I mean, the other thing he should be saying is if I had been president since January 2017, the situation would be different today.
In good-paying jobs, by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, roads, bridges. I don't have to tell the people of Michigan who have lived through Flint, Michigan, about a horrible water system.
All right, but one more question with regard to billionaires. Bill Gates is coming up with a home test kit that he's going to give out all over that area. Other billionaires who are at pharmaceutical companies are putting, the pedal to the metal to try to find treatments and vaccines. So there are good things that billionaires do in a time of crisis, right?
Martha, but take a step back. I understand that. And I'm not here to demonize anybody. I really am not. I have nothing personal against Bill Gates, who has done many good things in his life. His foundation has done good things. But don't you think it's a bit absurd that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we have to depend upon the generosity of billionaires to help us? We should be.
That's the right answer.
We're going to move on to the next audience question. But if you had to, would you close down the borders?
No. I mean, what you don't want to do right now, we have a president who has propagated xenophobic anti-immigrant sentiment from before he was elected. What we need to do is have the scientists take a hard look at what we need to do. There are communities where the virus is spreading. What does that mean? It may mean self-quarantining. It may be not having public assemblies. But let's not go back to the same old thing. Isn't it interesting that a president who has been demagoguing and demonizing immigrants, the first thing that he could think about is closing down the border. So we need scientists to tell us the appropriate approach, not a political approach.
Okay, let's turn to an audience question. Allison? Allison? Yeah, go ahead.
Very solid so
Senator
far.
Sanders. So to some people, you're seen as too liberal. It seems like you have the right ideas, but to most moderate Democrats, it seems like Joe Biden could get more accomplished in office. So how will you ensure that you can accomplish all of your goals in office and leave the country in a better place after 4 years?
Thanks, Allison. I reject the idea. I really do. That's one of the things that bothers me. You know, I hear it every day. I hear it on the media. I hear it from my opponents. Bernie is an extremist. Bernie is too radical. Okay, let's deal with it. Is raising a starvation minimum wage.
So he's going to do these things aren't radical, but the question about getting things done is a relevant one, and I hope he answers it.
To $15 an hour, a living wage, a radical idea? Is making public colleges and universities tuition free so that all of our people have the opportunity to get a higher education in a competitive global economy. Is that a radical idea? No. Is doing what every other major country on earth does, guaranteeing health care to all as a right. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. This is not a communist society up there in Montreal. They guarantee health care to all. They spend 50% of what we spend.
Love Montreal.
Is passing a Medicare for all single-payer system a radical idea? No. And last point, Donald Trump, I know he's on the network a whole lot. Donald, you're probably watching. How are you? All right, I know.
We're doing a press conference right now.
Wanted to say hello to the president.
He's actually giving a news conference.
Oh, is he? But I'm sure he's watching Fox on the side there. You know, he's kind of addicted to your station. Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. And that's because he doesn't understand or respect science. I believe that climate change is an existential threat to this planet. I will listen to the scientists who tell us that we have got to move aggressively to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And through a Green New Deal, by the way, we can create up to 20 million good-paying jobs. So my point is, I appreciate Allison raising the question. I just don't think any of those
ideas
address
the issue
are radical.
of making law, though. I wish he would.
Let me ask you, just back to Allison's question, which was, you know, how you would get things done in Congress when there are a lot of folks who don't agree with all of the ideas that you just mentioned. And here is one of them. This is Hillary Clinton. She talked about you in a documentary that was released earlier this week. Watch this.
Bernie just drove me crazy. He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. He did not work till he was like 41, and then he got elected to something. It was all just baloney, and I feel so bad that, you know, people got sucked into it.
Wow, that's strong stuff. What's your reaction?
Unlike Secretary Clinton, I don't want to relive 2016. We're in 2021. But what I would say, on a good day, my wife likes me. But also, if you guys look at some of the polling that they do for United States senators, you know, they do polls of how popular you are. In most cases, I turn out to be the most popular United States senator in the whole country. So 1 or 2 people most likely.
Senator, President Trump continues to tweet. He continues to tweet even today that the Democratic primary race is rigged against you. He said the same thing in 2016.
This will be a key answer.
Do you agree with President Trump?
Well, you know, given the collapse of the stock market today, given the spread of the coronavirus, one might think, to tell you the truth, that a president of the United States would be worrying about some other things rather than the Democratic primary. But maybe I'm wrong on that. Look, Trump has his agenda, and I have the feeling that deep in his heart, he's really not all that worried about me. I appreciate his concerns. You will forgive me if I don't necessarily trust him or believe him. But I will say this.
Right.
He has some very smart political consultants around him. And a couple of weeks ago, a political consultant, somebody asked him, well, who would you rather run against, Sanders or Trump or whatever? And what the guy said, I forgot his name, he said, you know what? Running against a movement makes me nervous because they understand that our campaign is more than just a campaign. We are creating a multiracial, multi-generational.
Guys, I know a lot of people in my audience want Bernie to say, yes, it's rigged against me. That's the stuff that has caused problems for him. When he says we're against the Republican and Democratic establishment, that means a lot of Democrats don't vote for him, and they didn't on Super Tuesday. I don't think this is stupid.
About the economy, Jonathan is an undecided voter, I believe, and he has the next question. Jonathan?
There it is.
Where's Jonathan?
There he is.
Okay.
Hi, Senator Sanders. If you were met with an obstructionist Congress, what compromises would you be willing to make to still promote your chief policies?
I didn't hear the last part of the question.
What compromises would you be willing to make to still promote your chief policies?
In other words, if you have a Congress that doesn't agree with you, what compromises would you make to get it across the finish line?
Look, I should tell you, I know that there's another mythology going out around me that everybody hates me. We heard that from Secretary Clinton, that I can't work with anybody. Check the record, and you'll find that in the 1990s, when I was in the House, I passed more roll call amendments on the floor of the House, bipartisan, than any other member of the House, year after year after year. So in other words, when we see people who have common interests, I don't care what party they're in. For example, there were and have been and are today a number of Republicans who are outraged that we are spending 10 times more for prescription drugs, same prescription drugs than people in other countries. They were getting ripped off day and night by the collusion and price fixing in the pharmaceutical industry. There are Republicans who want to address that. I will work with them on that issue. There are Republicans who know that our infrastructure, roads, bridges, water systems are collapsing. I will certainly work with them on that. I worked with Mike Lee, you know Mike Lee of Utah. Mike and I, he was a very conservative Republican from Utah. Mike and I worked together to pass for the first time under the War Powers Act a Senate resolution getting the United States out of the horrific war in Yemen. All right? Mike Lee, a conservative Republican, and I worked together on that. I worked with the late John McCain, who was a friend of mine. We had different points of view, but I respected John immensely. John and I worked together when I was chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs on perhaps the most comprehensive veterans bill passed in modern history. So the idea that I cannot work with Republicans on issues where we can come together is just not accurate.
All right, so a lot of the questions that deal with trying to pin you down on specifics.
All right, go for it,
how
Brett.
you're going to pay for your programs.
Good.
Now, several economists have really tried to calculate the cost of the total list. I'm talking Medicare for All, Green New Deal, free college, housing, all of it
free
together.
college, public colleges and universities.
Understand the caveat.
Harvard will not be free on my
Estimates put it at a staggering $55 trillion
Look at this
with a T
zeros.
over the next
Now,
decade.
that's a propaganda,
Now, it's hard to describe that much money.
image.
55.
It's a lot of money.
All right, so just give me a second. There's 1 second. 1 million seconds is 12 days ago. 1 trillion seconds is 31,689 years ago. That's 1 trillion. You're talking $55 trillion. Hold on. If entirely covered by taxes,
I need a protractor
it would
for
be
this.
nearly double the existing level of taxes. If entirely covered by borrowing, it would soar the national debt to $78 trillion. Now, the national debt is $23 trillion right now and counting. So, how can you pay for all this?
Good. All right. Now, I don't have the teleprompter. All right, but I'll do my best. All right.
How was to get the numbers right?
Okay, good question. All right, let's deal with it. Fair question. Bernie, you're proposing bold ideas. How are you going to pay for them, right?
With a big price tag.
Yes. All right, let's deal with them. Medicare for all. How are you going to pay for Medicare for all? Fair question. How are we paying for it right now? We're paying for it right now by spending twice as much per person as the people of any other country. The average family in America makes approximately $60,000 a year. They are paying $12,000 a year, 20% of their income for health care. Their employer is paying even more. So what I propose is, instead of you, an average worker, paying $12,000 a year, what we are going to do is eliminate all premiums. And now let's be fair about this. Sometimes we're not fair on television. All right? Premiums are gone. Got it? No one's paying any more premiums. No one's paying any more co-payments on the Medicare for all. The absurd concept of a deductible is gone. All right? We're going to lower, because we're going to end the greed and collusion of the pharmaceutical industry. Nobody under my plan pays more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. Okay? All of that. Got that? No one's paying that. Then I say to you, look, healthcare is not free. I'm not suggesting to you it is. You're the average worker. You're making $60,000 a year. What I say to you, there are various options out there that we put on our website. Number one, we have proposed a 4% income tax on you, exempting the first $29,000. So people making $29,000 or $1,000 or less don't pay anything. But that would mean that you would pay 4% of $31,000. That's $1,200 a year. You know what, guys? Comprehensive health care under my Medicare for All plan, by the way, that includes dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and home health care. $1,200 a year is a pretty good deal, it seems to me. That doesn't cover it all. That does not cover it all.
Not nearly.
What we impose is a 7.5% payroll tax on employers. That will save employers money. And then through progressive taxation, we fund the rest.
How much does all that add up to?
Okay, here we go. Give me a minute.
Okay.
All right. He took a minute. Give me a minute
Yeah,
response.
sure.
Okay.
Take it.
Right now, the estimate is from the Department of Health and Human Services that over the next 10 years, this country will be spending about $50 trillion. Got it? $5 trillion a year. Okay. According to recent studies, Medicare for All will save money because we're doing away with the profiteering of the insurance companies and the drug companies. And here's the main point. Right now, we have to, as a nation, administer thousands of private insurance plans, which cost a fortune to do. Do away with that because you have one broad plan. You can save some $400 or $500 billion. So to answer your question, right now, the federal government, through Medicaid, Medicare, and other public health programs, we're spending about $30 billion a year. We think you'll need about $47 billion to fund what I want to fund. That's $17 billion more, and it comes through the mechanisms that I talked about.
This is just Medicare for all.
Yeah, I hope some people understand that these numbers are not inspiring that much confidence in me. I think it's going to cost more.
I got it. We have documented how we do pay for that. Let me go to free tuition in public colleges and universities and canceling all student debt. How do we pay for that? We pay for it through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. That's how we pay for it.
But you're going to also, everyone is going to have to increase their taxes. Last time we talked, you said, yeah, probably middle class will also see their taxes go up. You also talk about cutting defense spending. When you look at defense spending, we've spent $6.4 trillion over 19 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you said, I'm not going to spend $1 after that, you wouldn't even come close to making the money back if you cut defense spending to cover the plan that you're talking about at $55 trillion.
All right, but one second. All right. If you look at
She's
what
now
I'm
muddling
doing issue by issue, I told you how we would fund Medicare for all. You're saying, and this is where we need from media kind of honesty and respect in this sense. No, I'm not beating up. No, I am not beating up on these guys.
Well,
I am not.
We're just looking at
I am not beating up on you.
Right, she's
All
asking
that I'm
about
saying-
paying for one thing with something he says isn't going to be used to pay
Here's
for
the
that.
point. This
It
is
is
not
the
numbers.
It is.
No. All right. Well, here's numbers then. If right now you're the average worker, okay, you're paying $12,000 a year for health care. And if I said to that worker that I can provide better health care for substantially less, but you'll have to pay more in taxes, I admit it, okay? So let's say you pay $1,200, $2,000 more in taxes for comprehensive health care, but you're not paying $12,000 in premiums, co-payments, and out-of-pocket expenses. Who has the better deal?
Well, that may be true for the $12,000 a year person. For the $30,000 or $40,000 a year per person who likes the health plan they have from their employer,
That's almost no one.
There's 180 million Americans who have coverage that they like, but you're going to take that away from them.
No. First of all,
No?
it's 150 million, and this is what we're doing. Every year, do you know how many people lose their health insurance every year? Because they lose their job or they transfer or whatever may happen, they quit.
Definitely.
About 50 million people a year lose their health insurance. That's true, okay? What we are doing is what every other country on earth does. Why do you think it's a great, I'm pointing, I don't mean to be argumentative. I'm looking at you, I don't know. But it could be many of my Democratic opponents, the same thing.
Sure.
All right. Why do you think that it's a wonderful idea that employers in this country are burdened with the cost of health care? Why is it that
They would probably agree with you. They'd probably not want to have that burden.
That's
but
right.
It has covered a lot of people. Yeah.
Look,
Yeah, this is
you're
totally
a small
arbitrary
business person. You're a
to say
decent
people get
person. You got 10
insurance from
people
work.
working for you, right? You want to provide health care. It is enormously expensive.
It is.
All right?
Absolutely, that's true.
So every other country has said, you know what, you're a small businessman. Do your damn business. Don't worry about health care. We will cover all health care for you as a human right. So I think, I just want to end on this note, and the coronavirus makes this point. We lose, we lose conservatively, guys, about 30,000 people every year. That's conservative, who die because they don't get to a doctor when they should. That's a tragedy. But you can see the absurdity of the current system today when people cannot afford to go to the doctor who may be struggling with the coronavirus. I don't know how you can, anybody can defend the system where we're spending twice as much per person, and yet you got 87 million uninsured or underinsured. It is an indefensible system unless we worry about the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profits last year.
Senator, we gave you the time, and we want to give many more questions to come, including the Green New Deal and socialism. Our town hall with Senator Sanders continues after this.
All right, very good. So we've got a lot going on here. Bernie, I mean, he's really doing well, generally speaking. Oh, wait, is this still going? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, just making sure. There's a lot going on here, and Bernie is doing the best he can. He is getting tough questions. There is follow-up. This has always been a point of contention, which is people like to distort the money stuff with the programs, but there are also still open questions, and that's me telling it to you with peace and love. Let me say thanks to Heroes Shadow, who cheered 1,000 bits on Twitch. I appreciate that. Welcome if you're just joining us. We've been having discussions and answering questions about what we are seeing here. I do want to say thanks to some new David Pakman Show members, really, really great people who have signed up. Ben Exler is new member number 5 tonight at joinpakman.com. Jonathan Sanborn is new member number 6. Kyle Hanna is new member number 7 this evening. Andrew Doer is new member number 8 tonight. Colton Hahn is new member number 9. And Jonathan, oh wait, I already mentioned Jonathan. Yes, that's not, okay, yeah, I don't want to mention Jonathan twice. I would love to, but your membership only counts once, Jonathan. Join us at joinpakman.com. It's cheap. We've got a really great discount code, 2020 now, that saves you a whole bunch of money. Let me answer some of the super chats that came in. KWB asked, how many hours do you work on the show per week? I don't know the answer to that. Many. It's my full-time job. Captain Obvious says, not sold on the economic argument, David. Even under a recession, I think Trump would still be at 43. No evidence for a dip so far. Yes, this is not about approval. This is about who chooses to go out and vote based on their perception of the economy. It is very difficult to unseat an incumbent when the economy is perceived as good. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Quirky Quips says, are you feeling okay? I hear a possible throat issue. I did go running about an hour ago, and yeah, I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know, I've got a little, I don't think it's asthmatic, so to speak, but I've got a little something going on since I went running. Shaners says, really wish primaries moved to ranked voting with early ballots. Friends here in Arizona have already lost their votes due to dropouts. I'm against early voting in primaries on that basis, although I understand the importance in raising turnout. It's a complicated issue. Adam, ranked choice would potentially solve it. If you vote, if your first choice is out on election day, your vote is transferred. Single transferable vote would also work. Adam Waddington says, should Bernie directly address Biden's mental decline in the debate? Wouldn't it help his case moving forward? I think it's risky for Bernie to do that because then Biden could bring up, you're almost 80 and just had a heart attack. And that's not a problem Biden has. I think it would start to get into an argument about mental health versus physical health. I think it's dangerous. I doubt he will do it. I would be shocked if Bernie did it. Do you think Fox may save Bernie's campaign by bringing up Biden's cognitive decline explicitly? LOL, standing up was some clever shade. Bernie always does that. He did that at the last town hall. He always asked to stand up. I don't think it would really move the needle very much, unfortunately, for Bernie.
Welcome back to our town hall with Senator Bernie Sanders. We're in Dearborn, Michigan, a big election tomorrow. We have another question from the audience, and this is Nina. Nina with a question.
Hi, Nina.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Some of Joe Biden's answers don't make sense. Do you think it's acceptable for a presidential candidate to respond to questions like Joe Biden does?
Oh, boy. Teeing it up.
Well,
let's see what he says. This is perfect opportunity.
Let me just say this. You know, Joe Biden is a friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. When we do our events and our rallies, we try to give we respect people in a sense, and we give really substantive, these guys will think maybe too long-winded answers, but we take people, there are real crises facing this country. When I give a speech, often it's 45 minutes or an hour.
Let's see what he does.
Because there are a lot of challenges that the country faces, and I got to talk about them. You know, I think Joe was somewhere in, where was he? I don't know, Michigan or someplace else the other day, and he spoke for 7 minutes. I don't know how you say anything other than, you know, minimal discussion in 7 minutes. So all that I have always believed is that if we believe in democracy, a candidate has got to be honest with the people about what he or she believes, given the many, many challenges facing our country. And when you do that, when you're honest and you look at the hard issues, so you're going to take on the fossil fuel industry,
Bernie
or
treading
Wall
carefully.
Street, or the drug companies, it brings forth opposition. I know that. I get beaten up every day. That's fine. That's what I do. But all I would say is, I'm not going to criticize Joe, but to say that I think the American people in this incredibly complicated and difficult moment in our history are entitled to thoughtful answers to the crises we face.
Carefully answering it, for sure.
Senator, this isn't a personal attack, but it gets to Nina's question. And the question of Joe Biden's mental acuity is not something that just comes up anywhere. Democrats have brought this up, including Senator Cory Booker, who endorsed Joe Biden today. Take a listen.
You just said that 2 minutes ago. Are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago? Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago?
I think that Castro has some really legitimate concerns about, can he be someone in a long, grueling campaign that can get the ball over the line? And
They're
going to
push Bernie to either say something or
not.
not.
There are definitely moments where you listen to Joe Biden and you
This is
just
not going to help
wonder,
Bernie tomorrow. I mean, I hate to break it, guys.
That a lot of his
this will not
sentences
get
don't
Bernie a win
make sense,
tomorrow.
that he's having trouble completing thoughts.
Senator, your thoughts?
I'm not going to go at that level in attacking Joe. Joe and I have...
Bernie's right not
that's
to.
for people to decide. All I can say is Joe and I have very significant political differences. And I'm not going to be making, personal attacks on Joe. That's not what I do. But Joe and I... But Brett and Martha, I think, as you know, we have, Joe's been in the Senate and I've been in the Senate and the House for a long time. Joe voted for the war in Iraq. I led the opposition against the war. Joe voted for the Wall Street bailout. I voted against it. Joe has been on the floor of the House over the years talking about the need to cut Social Security, veterans programs, other programs. I have led the opposition to those cuts. Joe's views on women's issues. Joe has supported the Hyde Amendment, which would deny low-income women to use Medicaid funds for their own reproductive needs. I strongly disagree with that approach. So on issue after issue, even in terms of how we raise funds for our campaign, Joe has the support of at least 60 billionaires funding his campaign.
Let me just ask you one quick question. You said a moment ago that he gives 7-minute answers. Are you suggesting that he lacks substance?
No, I didn't. Well, I'm just saying, look, I'm here, we're talking about real issues.
Right.
All right, and we can go on for 3 hours talking
They're
about
trying
it.
to goad Bernie to attack Biden's cognition. Bernie's smart not to do it. It won't get him a single additional delegate, guys.
I can't do it in 7 minutes. There are too many issues. There's healthcare, education, climate change, immigration reform, criminal justice reform. I don't know how you do that in 7 minutes. So all that I'm saying, Martha, is that I think as a candidate for president, you owe respect to the people, and you have to have the courage or the desire to say, hey, this is where I'm coming from. This is my view. You disagree with me? Fine. But I can't do that in 7 minutes of a speech.
All right, let's go to Margaret, who is in the audience. Margaret? Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Senator. As someone from Russia, a country that was greatly impacted by the negative effects of socialism, what assurances can you offer myself and other people impacted by socialism that democratic socialism will not have the same results?
I think that might be.
Thank you for the question, Martha. Martha? Margaret. Okay. What happened and existed in the Soviet Union was not socialism. It was authoritarian communism. And communism, whether in Cuba, whether in the Soviet Union, whether in other countries, was marked by totalitarianism, was marked by throwing millions of people into the gulag. Stalinism was about as bad as it got. But right near, you're from Russia. I don't know if you've ever visited Finland. Does Finland Finland is a neighbor to Russia. They have a very democratic society with strong democratic socialist principles. Everybody in Finland has health care as a right. Their educational system is perhaps the best in the world, and college there is free. They take environmental responsibility very, very seriously. They have one of the lowest rates of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. And you know what? Their voting rate, people who participate in their elections, is a lot higher than it is in the United States. So when we talk about democratic socialism, Margaret, I'm talking about Finland, I'm talking about Denmark, I'm talking about Sweden.
This was always a liability.
I'm talking about
I've been
countries
saying it
all
for years.
over the world who have used their government to try to improve life for working families, not just the people on top.
So, Senator, let me follow up on that, if I may. Basically, since the 90s, if you look at examples in Sweden and Denmark, they have been lowering or cutting property taxes, lowering corporate taxes, allowing vouchers for schools, for public schools and private schools, which is one of the reasons why their education has improved. The founder of IKEA, who famously came back, left his home country, moved here, has now gone back because he says the tax environment for him is getting better. So they appear to be moving away more towards market reform and not towards what you're describing you'd like to see here.
All right, but if you, and I'm not an expert on the current economy in Sweden, but disagree with me if you want, does Sweden guarantee health care to all people as a human right?
Yeah, but they're finding other ways to pay for it because they have to improve their economy to cover
But they guarantee every person, regardless of income, yes, can go to college. Is that the case in the United States? That's certainly not.
I mean, there are like 5.6 million people, I think, in Denmark.
Of course. But my point is what these countries
more
have
people
done,
to
and they
pay
don't
in,
get the
more
credit
people.
for it.
I mean, come on.
We have in America, unbelievably, the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. In terms of the African-American community, like 1/3 of our kids, African-American kids, are in poverty. Check out the poverty rate for kids in Scandinavia. It'll be far, far lower. Their retirement benefits for their older people are better. Their wages that their workers make are better. So I cannot give you, I should know it, but I don't, all of the details about the tax system in Sweden. But all I can say is they have gone a long way to eliminate poverty, to make sure that all of their people have the basic needs that they need in order to live good lives. And by the way, in international study after international study, it turns out that countries like Denmark are the happiest countries on earth. And you know why? Because if you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay for health care, if you don't have to worry about how you're going to afford to send your kids to college, if you don't have to worry about the cost of childcare, if you're earning a decent wage, even if you're paying more in taxes than you may be paying in the United States, that takes a huge load of stress off of your backs.
You mentioned Cuba, though. You mentioned Cuba and authoritarian regimes. There are a few moments in races that seem like turning points. And many experts looked at that moment on 60 Minutes when you talked about Fidel Castro's literacy program as a turning point in this race. Do you regret at all saying what you said at that time
because of how it would be portrayed
in this race?
No. Look, I have spent my entire life fighting for working people and fighting for democracy. And Brett, if you check my record, I have condemned authoritarianism, whether it is in the Soviet Union, whether it's in Cuba, whether it is in Saudi Arabia. They're not having too many free elections there.
There's no places you could
whether it's
list
the United Arab Emirates, wherever it may be. I happen to be old-fashioned, and I believe in democracy. So if you look at a country like China, for example, today, is China a democracy? Of course it's not a democracy. It is an authoritarian country, and Xi is taking it in a bad direction. But what can we say about China in the last 50 years? Would anybody in their right mind deny that extreme poverty in China has been reduced? Can anyone deny that? Of course not. Does that mean we approve of the Chinese government? No, it doesn't. But I think, sometimes, and I know it's hard, given, gotcha, not you, no, given the media that we deal with and everything else, you say something and people can beat up on you. I think you got to tell the truth. So if in China they've reduced extreme poverty, does that make me a communist who supports China? No, I'm just telling you a simple fact.
I guess it was Democrats who weighed in.
Of course they did.
Stephanie Miller, a Democrat from Florida, said Castro was a murderous dictator who oppressed his own people. His literacy program wasn't altruistic. It was a cynical effort to spread his dangerous philosophy and consolidate power. Well, that's a Democrat.
I know. So what? We've got a lot of Democrats who are attacking me as well. You know that. Nothing new there. But, you know, if you remember what Barack Obama said, when Obama correctly tried to bring a normalized relationship with Cuba, what he said, I don't want to misquote him, but he said something, I'm paraphrasing, to the effect that Cuba has made progress in healthcare and education.
Cuba.
You know? Yeah, so that doesn't mean you support authoritarian governments. That's all.
So the New York Times just wrote a very large piece on how the Soviets, in this
See, I don't have to only worry about Fox. I got to worry about the New York Times, too.
About the Kremlin in the 80s and suggesting that they used you. There's a picture from the piece for propaganda purposes. Here's a quote from the piece. The documents show the Soviets' intensive preparation to use Mr. Sanders' interest in their country to their advantage. What do you say about that?
I say that the New York Times got it very, very wrong. What I established in late 80s as mayor of the city of Burlington, a sister city program with Yaroslavl in the Soviet Union. Do you know who was advocating in a very strong way the establishment of sister city programs all over America? A communist named Ronald Reagan.
Man.
By the way, that sister city program today is still in existence 35 years later. It means that doctors from Russia have come over to the United States. I think the hockey team came over. There have been student exchanges. So let me be very clear. I think that was a great idea. And I want to see more. Rather than spending money, billions of dollars on the military, I want kids from all over the world to visit the United States.
You don't think they were, sort of using your interest in their country in any way to sort of find an in?
Well, show how they did it. Show what they did.
At that point, and I think the Times article makes that point on paragraph 203, there were, I think, dozens of sister city programs with the Soviet Union.
Senator, we have many more questions from the audience. What about colleges and paying for college?
Good.
That is a real question from somebody in our audience as our town hall continues with Senator Bernie Sanders.
And going to a break there. If you're just joining us and you're watching on YouTube, we have been bringing you all sorts of stuff from the last 6 months of primary coverage, election results, town halls, debates, etc. Please do like and subscribe. Like and subscribe on YouTube. It costs nothing. It really helps us. It really doesn't. Our streams have been doing better and better the more that we've been making sure people know to like and subscribe when watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, make sure to hit that follow button as well. None of these things cost a damn penny, my friends. Let me say thank you to a few other folks who have signed up on my website. JoinPacman.com is the place to do it. We have a very modest goal of 25 new members. Kumna Mamuth is new member number 10 tonight. Kenneth Johansson is new member number 11. And William Gotch is new member number 12 this evening. Really appreciate your support. Grab a membership at joinpacman.com. It's quick, it's cheap, you get great extras, and you're directly supporting our channel, which I so appreciate. Over on Twitch, I want to say thanks to Neandra33, who has grabbed the Twitch Prime sub, the Welshalex, who has subscribed with Prime, Bolo has subscribed and says Pacman, and Rebel Without a Cause is now a subscriber for 7 months. So is Ina Rikun and Bic Bro Beans, as well as Parker Moss. And yeah, I think I'm caught up there. A few super chats. Max asks, will Bernie talk about Biden's cognitive capacity? No, he was already goaded into it by the hosts, and he didn't take the bait. I think it was smart. Bernie's not going to win Michigan tomorrow because he says Biden's losing it. He's just not going to do it. I think it's good strategy for Bernie not to do it. First in Last Kappa says, should Bernie play up the crowd's vibes and turn to them for more answers to tough questions? It was effective when he did it. Thanks, Cy, for the YouTube subscription. McFreezy says, it seems like people don't understand you need socialism to rein in the excess of capitalism from becoming too greedy and turning into a fascist state. You need a mixed economy to have a democracy. I think you're maybe, that's not the way I would put it. Dylan Hart says Joe's going to be the establishment government's brainless meat puppy. GURPS says tax to GDP ratio in the US is 24, EU is 34, in Nordic countries it's 40s, a difference of trillions, plenty of money in the economy to pay Bernie's plan in the long run. Bernie should have just said that. Dan Hertz says, I'm 12 miles away. I'm going to go check it out. I don't know what you're referring to. Isaiah Gilliard says, somewhere in this debate, Bernie needs to challenge the media to vet Biden in the way they do to him. We may see that. I would be surprised. Jeremy Comfort says Sanders will bring us to egalitarianism. First in, last Kappa asks, is your throat tickle just a distraction? I believe that it is. I believe that it is. I do have a tickle in my throat. Let's get back to the town hall here with Bernie Sanders on Fox News.
We are back, and we want to get to the next question from the audience, which is from Sharif. Sharif, hello.
Evening, Senator Sanders.
Good evening.
As a Palestinian American, I and many like myself would like to know what your plan is to bring a fair resolution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Nobody's going to like this answer.
Well, you know, Sharif, this has been an issue that we struggled with for many, many decades.
Uh-oh, needs a drink of water.
But this is what I will tell you. And I tell you this as a Jewish American, somebody who was a kid, lived on a kibbutz in Israel. The United States cannot continue to maintain a one-sided policy toward the Middle East. What we need, Israel needs absolutely to be guaranteed the right to live in peace and security. No question about that, and I will defend that right. But the Palestinian people need also to understand that the United States believes they have a right to live in dignity and with justice. And what I am very concerned about, is that over many years, especially under Netanyahu, we have seen a right-wing drift in Israel. I have called Netanyahu a racist. I believe that is true. On the other hand, when you look at Gaza, you're looking at a terrible, terrible situation where youth unemployment is, I believe, somewhere around 60 or 70%. People are unable to leave. Serious health conditions. That is unsustainable. So what the United States has got to do, and I'm not here to tell you it is easy, but to treat both sides with respect. We are putting a lot of money into Israel, and to say, you know what? You just can't use that money on weapons. We want you to sit down with the Palestinians. I know it's hard. Let's work out a two-state solution. Let's end the encroachment of the settlements on Palestinian land.
And the mention of two-state solution angers a lot of people who like the answer up until this point.
And continue to have just a pro-Israel policy.
All right, the next question.
There's people like 90% of that until he said two-state.
Richard, there you go.
Hi, Senator Sanders.
Hey, Richard.
As a first-year college student here at the University of Michigan Dearborn, I understand attending university can be expensive. But at the same time, I understand that I'm making an investment in my future. What would you say to families who have worked hard to save up money so that their children can go to college with minimal debt, or to graduates that have worked hard after graduating to pay off their student loans? Would you consider these people in your plan to cancel all student loan debt for public universities?
Well, I certainly would consider those people and all middle class and working families in my plans as we bring change to America. But in terms of college, let me rephrase your question and tell me where you disagree with me. 100+ years ago, in a fairly radical action, working class people said, you know what? We want our kids not to be working in factories or on farms or in fields. We want them to have an education. Yeah. Okay? And what they said, which 100+ years ago is a pretty radical idea. They said, you know what? Everybody should have a right to go to public schools roughly from first grade through 12th grade. And that was transformative in America. I went to a public school. Most of my kids in my public school, we didn't have any money. We had a pretty damn good education, okay? The world has changed from where it was 30 years ago or 50 years ago. Technology, the global economy has changed it. I don't think it's a radical idea to say that when we talk about public education, it shouldn't just be from first grade to 12th grade. Right. It should be through college or trade school as well. That's why I believe That's why I believe we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free. And it's why I also believe that through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation, we should cancel all student debt in this country. All right? So I think the question that those families that you mentioned should be asking is,
what would we do with that money?
How could it be right that Trump and his friends gave 2 years ago $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and large corporations? How could that be right? How could it be right that the fossil fuel industry, which is today, with their product, if you like, destroying our planet, gets tens of billions of dollars a year in subsidies and tax breaks? How could it be right that the taxpayers of this country bailed out the crooks on Wall Street? So I have no apology for saying, and by the way, it is happening in America. State after state, community after community understands the truth of what I'm saying. They are making public colleges and universities tuition-free, and that is exactly what has got to happen.
All right, Senator.
Wow.
We have a short time here. We'll do a little lightning round. Short questions, short answers.
Oh, I hate lightning
rounds. I know. Well, just a quick one. Just a quick one. Here we go.
So there's some speculation about who Joe Biden would pick if he were to get the nomination. And some of the people that are said to be on that list, maybe Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar. Who would be on your list?
You looking for a job?
Sure.
It is to be very bipartisan. I offer you the job. It's a little.
You don't know my politics, though.
I think he has an idea.
It's a little bit premature. I haven't won the nomination yet. But I think my gut feeling is that it must be a woman. I would look to women first. But they would be women, by the way, who hold my political views.
So one of those is Elizabeth Warren. You said it would be nice to have Elizabeth Warren's support. But have you asked for it?
Have I asked for it? Elizabeth and I talk. We have talked for 20 years. We talk on a regular basis.
So
how's that for a political answer?
Interesting.
Did
Interesting.
you ask her for her support?
We talk on a regular basis. All right. What's your next question?
You're hoping it's really lightning. Okay.
So maybe it's the same answer to this question. This question is, who is your closest friend in Washington?
My wife.
That's a good answer. I like that answer.
I have, developed over the years a lot of good friends in the House, good friends in the Senate. And by the way, not all of them are Democrats. And one of the things that I have seen is there are a lot of decent people who are Republicans. We disagree. That does not mean to say they're good, that they're not good people, not honest people.
If you don't get the nomination, will you feel any responsibility for taking a job away from Larry David?
Oh, boy.
I saw David. He was moaning and groaning, and I say, hey, look, I'm going to give you a good job for the next 4 years. You're going to make a fortune. What are you complaining about? But,
Senator Sanders, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Great to have
Senator
you.
Sanders.
Thank you.
For joining us for this Fox News Town Hall.
All right, so listen, no missteps by Bernie Sanders. They brought up socialism a bunch of times. The socialism question may even have been planted, to be perfectly honest, and we're investigating that right now. But no missteps. I just don't believe it will really make a difference tomorrow. That's my instinct. If this did really well, it got what, an audience? Like if it did incredibly well, 4 million people saw this in total. Many of them are just Fox News viewers who are voting in the Democratic primary. The Democrats, aren't realistically going to be voting in tomorrow's these few states. But Bernie did well. Bernie didn't fall for going after Joe Biden on cognitive decline. It would have been fruitless, absolutely and completely fruitless. So I think that he did. I think that he did quite well. I just don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. Before you leave, please hit like and subscribe on YouTube. I know many of you are going to head out now that the town hall is over. Please do me that favor. With peace and love, hit subscribe and like, because it really does help our streams, and it'll help tomorrow. We'll be back for hours tomorrow night with the results, and I appreciate everybody who has been doing that. Let me say thanks to Lisa Patnode, who is today's 13th new member of the day. Hero Shadow is tonight's 14th new member. I very much appreciate your support. We do have this tremendous coupon code up there. 2020 now saves you 66%, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I also want to say thanks to Chill SD. Chill SD has subscribed for 3 months with Twitch Prime. Gunfoot has subscribed for the first time with Twitch Prime as well. And I very much appreciate that. Jane Woman Power says via Super Chat, students are punished for wanting an education. Yidikis says Trump 2020. I hope that was worth $5 to you. Skeptical Sloth says Trump will bring up Biden's dementia. It's best to point out how unelectable Biden is in every way before he wins the primary and is destroyed by Trump. Very, very interesting. I missed a bunch of super chats before. Let me see if I can catch them up. Justin Rossman says, amuse my fantasy for a moment. Any chance seniors uncharacteristically stay home tomorrow for fear of the cool virus, whereas younger Bernie voters would be less scared and too passionate to not vote? Be nice. I find it incredibly unlikely. I think it's an incredibly unlikely outcome. Marika says, what would you say to Warren supporters thinking about voting Biden just because of electability? I know a few. Listen, no matter what I say, Warren supporters are going to be very much split between Biden and Bernie. And I don't think the electability issue is the main one. Von Hunter says, if Trump were to win, how much does it hurt or help the progressive wing of the Democrats? I said earlier, I believe if Trump defeats Biden, it's probably good for the progressive movement for 2024 and 2022 even, potentially, I would even suggest. Let me say thank you to Grid Sleep, who has signed up via Patreon. I appreciate that very much. Let's see some other super chats. We addressed my throat issue. I do have a tickle in my throat. Don't want anybody to be angry about that. I may, I was today on the program I mentioned, it's not inconceivable that I had coronavirus 10 days ago. I had a few days of a very mild, dry cough, which is an 85% prevalence with coronavirus. I think it's very likely that the denominator is absolutely gigantic when it comes to COVID-19. And if once they get the tests widely out there, if I took it and I tested positive for antibodies or whatever, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody said, David, you had coronavirus 10 days ago. I think there are probably thousands or tens of thousands of people who did or will soon have it. A lot of extremely mild cases, and we already talked about that a bunch earlier today. Zachary Monroe says, I skipped a question. All right, let me see if I can find it. Zachary Monroe. Let's see. I'm assuming Fox News has twisted all information regarding the virus and the stock market to push their political agenda. What are your thoughts? I don't know if they have. I just don't know, watch enough Fox News to know, Zachary. But there's no doubt that some of that is being done by the president. And if that's the case, then Fox News is probably doing a bunch of it as well. I think I have now gotten your latest question, Zachary. Max asks, what's the path forward for progressives in the next 5 years? Let's focus on some Senate races for 2020 and then getting the Senate back in 2022 before we think so long term. The God Emperor says, who could continue the progressive movement with the same popularity, integrity, likability, and policies after Bernie? Listen, I think part of the problem for Bernie is he's not likable enough. I think that's why he's not winning. I think that there is a significant portion of the Democratic electorate who's not interested in Bernie Sanders. And that's why, despite there only being two candidates now, what you see in the national polls is that Bernie is not going any higher than 38 or 36%. When they said Bernie's a ceiling, that's not, there you go. When they said Bernie's ceiling was 20, they were wrong. When they said Bernie's ceiling was 25, they were wrong. When they said the ceiling was 30, they were wrong. But the ceiling may be 36 or 38, and we're going to very, very quickly see in some of those primaries tomorrow. So I think that we need to carry on the issues of Bernie Sanders, but maybe with different candidates. And I know there are many people in my audience who agree and some also who disagree. Yidikis YouTube says, totally was worth it. I like and support the show. Interesting points you bring up. Get well. Oma Laud says, GOP canceled open state, Virginia, and doubled Dem turnout, resulting in Buden jumping 40 points overnight. Do you see North Dakota doing the same after GOP canceled? Are Are you saying the Republicans canceled their Virginia primary? It's an open state, and a whole bunch of them voted for Democrats. Maybe we will see that in North Dakota. I'm not totally sure. That's going to do it today. Today is a short stream. I do want to say thank you to Michelle Benvenuti, who is new member number 15 tonight. Very much appreciate that. Very long stream tomorrow night. Results. Join me tomorrow night. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Twitch. Grab a membership. Oh, and Crystal Keller also. New member number 16 tonight. Thanks to everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night. Live results. It's do or die for Bernie. Either he's got a shot after tomorrow or it's over after tomorrow. We will know by midnight Eastern.